my picture's okay then.
Oh, you look awesome as always, David. But you know what's funny? You guys are sitting there talking about viruses, and I think it's a very real problem for businesses, especially smaller businesses where you don't have a dedicated IT team. And with the exponential growth of ransomware and our dependency on like cloud-based applications, I mean, what you guys were talking about, yeah, even Macs are vulnerable. It is some feistiness going out there that I think we all should be aware of.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So hey, I just realized we're live. So let's go ahead and let's kick off the Afterglow live recap pad. Afterglow live recap podcast. Oh boy, it's Friday. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Afterglow live recap podcast. My name is Syya.
And I'm Erin, Gregor.
And we are the co-chairs of the Dallas chapter of Global Leaders Organization, of which we summarize the weekly Business Acceleration 2.0 series of Global Leaders Organization.
Mouthful.
I know, gosh. And we are also the co-founders of Innovation Media Enterprises, and we are a consulting and strategic production firm for all things podcasting. Today, we welcome back a familiar face, but a very awesome and genuine person that really helps us out many, many times, Mr. David Saxby with Spark Communications, and also the Calgary chair of GLO. Welcome back, sir.
Oh, good to be back. Good to see both of you on a Friday morning. It's been a long week for me.
Yeah, no, right? Apparently it's been a long week for me since I can't speak English, but it is always lovely to see an international guest and just, that reinforcement of knowing that, GLO is international and just that, understanding that we're all in this together and we all have the same problems, challenges, successes, because I think largely because we're human.
So as you probably don't know, being in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, we have Stampede Week going on this week. So everybody's in party.
Are you guys open again? Like, are you okay
Not
now,
fully.
open-wise? Okay.
Yeah, they've limited the capacity for things like that, but you wouldn't notice if you were on the grounds wandering around.
So I didn't really know Calgary had a great cowboy kind of tradition with the Stampede and stuff. So I'm feeling very ignorant. I apologize profusely. So you guys have a Stampede. Is it like the Fort Worth, Erin? Is that similar? Do you know anything about Calgary?
All I know is that Heartland is recorded around Calgary.
Yeah.
I love Heartland.
We actually have quite a bit of movie work happening in Calgary.
Yeah.
A lot of westerns. But Stampede has been a tradition up here since the early 1900s. So we're kind of known as the Texas of the North.
Oh, well, and that's why we get along so well. You just can't get away from Erin and myself for Dallas.
Exactly.
So, hey guys, well, speaking of Dallas, this week's speaker, Kent Billingsley, is Dallas based, and he joined back for a round 2 of his discussion around revenue growth. And I got to tell you, I love Kent's passion. He is just so eager, and he is a big personality, a very strong personality. So I can see where he might be overwhelming at times, but his desire to turn everyone that has their own business into a millionaire. I mean, he means it. I mean, I remember, Erin, do you remember the first time we talked to him? He looked at me and he's like, and again, it was pre-pandemic, kind of pulls me in. He's a very tall man. I'm going to make you and Erin millionaires by the end of the year. And then, dun, pandemic happened, but
No,
he meant it.
Yeah, he's very passionate. And I think, a lot of entrepreneurs, I think his biggest part of it, they create jobs for themselves and they can make money, but they have no true freedom and they have no true plan to really make this the mailbox money concept, right? Like not just mailbox money, but lots of mailbox money, and being able to really strategize your business from that perspective. I think that's his passion, because I see too many business owners that they are stuck in the grind of running their business every day, and there's no true freedom in that.
And that is something that we get bogged down on. Yeah.
Interesting comment that he made too was the fact that a lot of people don't want to make money. And I thought
Yeah.
that's kind of odd because most people go into business to make money, but there's also an expression of the fact with many people, although they say they want to be rich, they don't really know what the concept of rich is.
Right.
For themselves. Every entrepreneur is different, right?
Right.
And so some people, $100,000 a year is great money, and some people, $10 million is chump change. It's
Right.
that concept of people not really wanting to be successful and be rich or be wealthy, as he puts it, and make a profit. They're making money, and like you say, they've built a job for themselves, but they're not making a profit. They're not making a lot of extra money that they can put away for bad times like COVID or whatever. So I thought that was an interesting comment on his behalf. And as he said too, that I think the other aspect of the whole situation is that most entrepreneurs don't have a roadmap. They don't have a plan in place. They start a business, like you say, to create a job for themselves, or they have particularly people who have a good technical skill. Whether it's actually technology or whether it's a particular background from education, that sort of thing. They create a job from that, and they don't know how to build their business. And I think from his comments, he was talking about it's really a formula. And in the old days, 50s, 60s, 70s, and I mean, I'm an advertising guy. I came through the whole advertising world where you built a widget and you sold it, and based on the fact that you had a good slogan, a good product, and good service, you could make money. And that changed a lot in the 90s. So we went into an era now where, as he was saying, it's a combination lock. It's a sequence. So it's not just one thing or one product or service, and not just one way of promoting it or getting your message to market. It has to be a combination of a bunch of things.
Yeah.
What I loved about the discussion was the fact that Kent focused solely on business conversation, and it's a business talk. The past speakers that we've all had on the Business Acceleration 2.0 series, which is weekly, 10 a.m., there's been a combination of the emotional side aspect, the wellness and the being, and just I feel like Kent was straight up here. We've had a lot of great conversations on taking care of yourself, but here's taking care of the business. Just let's focus on the task at hand, which is growing your business, which I have to say, again, it was a bit of a breath of a fresh air for me, not to imply that you don't need wellness. Absolutely you do. Being an entrepreneur is a lonely space, and it can really be taxing on your personal and professional relationships. What really struck me with him was, okay, let's sit down and let's look at your business and let's look at it with zero emotion involved. So have you guys looked at, our respective businesses with zero emotion and just said, here's a number, here's a ones and zeros, and here's where I need to be, period? Like, have you taken the time to do it? Because I have to admit, I don't. I'm more the emotional type. But David, what about you? Uh-oh, did we lose David?
I was going to say, I don't know if it's my computer, but I have a frozen David. So when he comes back, I know for me, I am a numbers girl. I do look at things from I always joke about real estate investing. I can't understand people who buy houses based on emotion. It's like, it's a numbers game to me. So from that perspective, I do look at things on a numbers perspective. But definitely more opportunity to do more of that. I'm looking at my notes right now on, what he went through on the various things of really honing in on who's your target market and, who is that target, and now going through and saying, okay, who are the customers that are just amazing to work with? How do I get more of those? And just, continuing and making it black and white instead of emotion, I think is very important, because it's one thing I've always had a beef with the female entrepreneur groups are, this heart-centered, and I feel like we do need to go through guts and intuition and all of that. I do feel those things are important, but there are also very basic black and white principles in business that do work, and you do need to understand your numbers. You do need to understand targets and forecasts and all of those things. Yes, those you need to have passion and a love and follow that. But I really feel that you can't have one without the other in order for a business to succeed.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So let me ask you this, because unfortunately I had to take a call like at one point in time where I was like wanting to write notes down. Was I feel like sometimes the methodology that's often used when for folks like Kent, right, where it's let's focus on the numbers, let's look at your the health of your business, right, just the pure, you know, spreadsheets, if you will. How much of that do you think has evolved since the pandemic? Because he kept saying, who's your audience, who's your target, who's your client, etc. But don't you think for most businesses, our clientele has shifted a little bit, or something in our business has to pivot to accommodate the change that maybe the pandemic brought up and out before that didn't exist?
Well, there was a pivot from audio to video for us, but I don't feel the clientele has changed. Or, I mean, it's just a matter of, okay, what's working in our business, what's not working, what are customers asking for? Do we provide that? Do we need to provide that? Are we going to become that shop? But I don't feel like customers have changed because of the pandemic.
Well,
I don't
do you
know if
think
I
maybe
understand the question.
Yeah, no, and I hear what you're saying on that. So I guess I was just thinking out loud in my head as far as like again with my tech background and just thinking out loud in my head of the buying behaviors, the buying patterns of some of these like businesses. I'm wondering if there is more efficiency in getting those POs out and trying to get projects done in more timely manners, if it's a remote staff or if it's not a remote staff. I guess I was kind of going back to my tech head, and I think that's why it's kind of messing me up a little bit. But even with the pandemic, you're right. We initially wanted to go into our when we entered into innovation media, right? We purposely said we're only doing audio. We've got the space aligned and situated purposely for audio. The pandemic, everyone wants to be on video now. What we're doing, we're live streaming, right? People want to do live streams now. And, it's just a matter of, I remember you and I had that conversation is, well, should we do it or should we not do it? Does it make fiscal sense to do it? How much more investment in equipment, hardware, resources do we need to in order to execute on our clients' wishes? Welcome back, David.
Yeah, good to be back. I'm not sure what happened there, but we disappeared.
I will say this: if ever a time for your face to be frozen, you actually froze on like a really good moment.
We thought you were about to talk. It's very deceiving.
Well, that's a good thing then. At least I didn't have that look of surprise and what the heck.
Yeah, no worries at all. No worries at all. So, okay, let's go back to Kent here. So, what I was saying earlier was he was saying, you got to know who your audience is and who you're talking to. And my question was, well, has that audience evolved or changed for you over the course of the pandemic? Have the needs of your clients that you thought you honed in on, has that evolved for you?
Oh, absolutely. I think, one of the things for me that happened, and it's kind of fortuitous timing, was about a year before the pandemic hit. I had been doing professional speaking, much like Kent does, travels, speaks to different audiences, does keynotes and seminars and workshops. And I was doing the same thing. And in the back of my mind, for a number of years, I've been saying to myself, what do I do that sustains the client even when I'm traveling? So I built an e-commerce or a e-learning platform. And it was interesting timing because a year before the pandemic hit, I'd been exploring it. When the pandemic hit, I went, okay, push the button, let's build the platform, built a brand new website and launched it. And now I've recognized that was a formula that was missing. And I remember Kent said, in his presentation, how do you define or differentiate your business from the competitors? Well, this gave me the advantage because now I can work with clients and I can do presentations online, I can do presentations live, and I can also send them to an ongoing e-learning system where they've got 52 weeks of information that they can learn from. So that was the pivot that happened for me. And it was the piece that had been missing and been nagging at me for quite some time is how do I serve clients even though I'm not present personally? So, and I think with Kent, he's got the same thing now with his online platform as far as, materials he's produced and the system he's created and so on. So I think with most businesses, we've probably got an idea in our mind that we need to be doing something else or something slightly differently. And one of the things he said is to keep an eye on trends. What's going on in trends?
Right.
And so I have to think back to when I first built my business. I was in the traditional advertising mode, which was 15% commission on media you sold to your clients. And of course, that market started shrinking because media started going directly to clients and negotiating better deals. And so I was seeing most of my colleagues in the industry going bankrupt. And I went, well, I can't go there. I don't want to go there. So what we did is we looked around and said, what's the trends? And at that time, this was in the mid 80s, lawyers and professionals were being allowed to advertise in Canada for the first time. So we looked at that and we said, okay, there's a trend. Commissions are shrinking. So how do we get into the market in an effective way, and who needs us? And we built a model of our business the same as a law firm. So in other words, we build senior partners at this rate, mid-range partners at this rate, and so on. So we were the exact same as lawyers. And so we went in to talk to lawyers and we say, we can help you do your marketing. And they go, oh yeah, you're just like us. You know, same model, same concept. So our agency took off. We went from basically a 4-person firm to 23 people in about a year and a half.
Wow.
Nice.
So,
Congratulations.
So that was just one of those things of saying, what's going on in the market? What's the trend? Where do we, offer the best opportunity for our clients, and how can we serve them in the way that they understand and are willing to pay for? So that was, part of what Kent said is, what's your formula? What's business do you do? What do you offer that's unique and different and nobody else can compete on? And how do you present that to the market? And what's the mix of what you do? What's your revenue streams? So I thought that was interesting. And I think one of the big failures with most entrepreneurs is they try to do tactical things first without a strategy. And Kent had alluded to this too, is you've got to have that formula. You've got to have that system and process in place, and then you can start to take it to market.
Yeah.
It's so much easier said than done. I'm not going to lie to you. Look, I know, because when you're a small business, having a process in place is oftentimes you and 2 other people, maybe, right? Or 3 other people or whatever have you, right? And so sometimes I just feel like it's like, I get it. I hear you. I mean, I came from HP as well. When you've got 30,000 employees, you've got to have a process put down and in place and structure, right? And
Absolutely.
You've got the tools, applications, resources, and able to ensure that alignment. But I mean, I have to say I get frustrated at times because I'm like, I get that, but it's me, it's me and like 3 other people or 4 other people. It's like it's easier said than done, I guess. And I think we have to acknowledge that as well, because I think sometimes when we say you got to put a process in place, I get that. But again, there's still the human element. There is still sometimes if it's almost too many tools in place, I'm looking at 20 different apps right now and I'm like, I can't keep up. I don't call me grandma, but I'm now becoming my own mom where I'm like, I can't remember how to use all these tools.
Well, I think what you always have to do as an entrepreneur is you have to be in the like from a sales perspective, what is the messaging? What is so clear about our product that I don't have to have the relationship in order to sell it? Someone else who has a relationship can easily sell it. And you're always looking at the things you do with the goal of removing yourself. That should always be your goal. It shouldn't be, I want to be the person doing all these things. Sure, it's good to know how to do them, but you will be stuck in a trap forever if you don't let those things go. So that's why the processes of everything and really, like understanding who your target is, what is your messaging, what is it that makes you so different? And it's not just, I've got a buddy over here, that's how that's how it works. But we are so precise that we can train this and 4 other people and they can go out and sell it for us. Right. So I always look at, how do I remove myself from this? Cause I got in the trap of, I wanted to be with my hands in everything. And it was the most freeing thing in the world when I could focus on more important things and not be involved in everything. And that's always the goal. Or go on vacation for 2 weeks and know that everything was covered. Like, it's those things that I think every entrepreneur should always have at that goal. And even if you're only spending an hour a week focused on those processes, focusing on those processes anytime that you can get on it is super important, because you're always looking at that long-term goal.
Yeah,
that's
I think the E-Myth put it in a good term is the difference between working in your business
Yeah.
versus working on your business. And small entrepreneurial companies are working in the business. I mean, they're the technician most of the times. And so in that book, he talked about moving from the technician to the entrepreneur, and in between there's the management part.
Right.
And so how do we get to the point where we can surround ourselves either with employees or other people we can work with that can help us move that way? And I know one of the things that I did for my business back when I was building it was I started to realize that, in fact, one of my employees came to me and said, we have to talk. And I thought, oh boy, they're going to quit and we're busy as heck. And so we sat down and had a conversation. She said, do you trust us? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, then why aren't you giving us some of the work to do? You're doing all the work and we're just sitting around waiting for things to do. And the light went on and I went, oh my God, yeah, she's right. I was such a perfectionist that I wanted to get everything just perfect. And once I started delegating, that was when I had the opportunity to grow the business exponentially. And I became the entrepreneur and the person that brought the business in. And then we were able to increase the business. So working in the business versus working on the business, I think, is one of the keys. And then, like you say, step back, take a look at it. What's the process? What's the formula? And the same thing's true with marketing. I see this with all the clients I work with, because I work in the area of marketing and sales, is that they're constantly doing little tactical things. Oh, we'll throw something on Facebook. We'll put something on LinkedIn. We'll send out a tweet, and so on and so forth. And I look at them and go, okay, first thing is, who is your audience? And where do they go to get information? And that usually turns the light on. They go, oh yeah, right. They're not on Twitter. In fact, some of the industries, especially things like construction industries, as an example, they're still writing things on paper and faxing it.
Right.
So they're not going to be on Twitter looking for suppliers. It's so I think that's one of the keys that he had said. And also, it doesn't have to be a big leap or a big difference between your competition. Like he was talking about the pizza business.
Right.
Bricks and mortar, then there was delivery and so on and so forth. And I have to think about in Canada here, at least, and I think it may be in the States, Subway.
Yeah.
And there was a company called Quiznos came along.
Yeah.
You remember that?
I love Quiznos.
Yeah. And what was different about Quiznos is one small thing. They toasted their sandwiches because they realized Subway didn't have ovens. So they toasted their sandwiches. And then
but what happened to Quiznos?
Well, Subway caught on to the fact that Quiznos was getting a lot of business and taking a large chunk of the market share, came back and put ovens in all their stores, started toasting everything. So that was kind of a, one little thing that made a difference and exponentially grew Quiznos. I think they've kind of gone away now, but
yeah, but that Papa John's analogy that I used, I had no idea about Papa John's because I was like, where the hell did this company come from? And honestly, like I've had their pizza, it's I ate, but it's nothing great. But the fact that he said no, they purposely didn't cook it because they could sell it as groceries and it was not taxed as opposed to a food delivery. And I'm thinking, that's
Papa Murphy's, you mean?
Oh, Murphy's. I'm sorry, Papa Murphy's. Is it?
Yeah, Papa John's is they did the fresh ingredients.
Yeah, the fresh ingredients, but they don't cook it, right?
No, Papa John's cooks it. Papa John's is like full delivery normal. Papa Murphy's doesn't cook it.
Yeah, they're like a station in a supermarket, basically.
Either way, clearly I'm not a big pizza person, but one of them and whatever it is. But again, just thinking creatively about that, right? It goes back to what even Yoshi Ginsburg from last week said, right? Was, hey, look, we're in the Amazon. He's stuck in there and the top predator doesn't always dominate everything. There's always a balance. There is the little bug that is the monopoly master of their niche, right? He said, you could be a monopoly. You can still own and differentiate yourself in your own section in the greater picture, but you still all need each other, right? Which why I think it's great that, when Kent was saying, you got to differentiate yourself. That's very true. And you can own that segment, if you will, right? And then focus and go on there. And you can still have, in our case, Erin, there's 1,000 studios out there right now, right? And there's tons of people rolling it out, especially now that the pandemic is, starting to open up and people are starting to go into studios. But, what's that differentiator, and what's that, what's the difference between us versus anybody else? And it really got me thinking about that because, initially I was like, when we first started, I was like, audio. We're going to own it. That's our lane, and we're just going to rock it. And, we're learning those different areas now of video production, and what does that mean with studio, ownership. So this is very salient, I think, for everyone. So I want to bring up one thing, you guys, here is Jonas keeps talking because he's very vocal, Mr. Jonas. Thank you. But he did ask this, you guys, how do you reconcile getting your strategy in place versus just getting started? Now, I do want to reference why he's asking that, because we have a client, Tracy Oswald, who is a podcast host for In Defense of Lady Macbeth. She had posted this list of, inhibitors of what's stopping you from succeeding in your business, or what do you notice that habit, if you will. And I just said number 8. Number 8 is folks that just can't get the start, don't know where to start. It says know where you're at when you launch or kick off or do whatever. So you have a strategy in place. How come there's so many people who talk about things, who overthink it? They've got the brainstorming sessions, but they just can't seem to just take that first step and move forward.
It's a head game. That's all a head game. And you can't take, even from a strategy perspective, I think you have to understand, have an idea of what you're doing, but your strategy is going to evolve and your strategy is going to change. And you're not going to have all the answers. I think starting is a total head game. You're in your head, you're scared, you're thinking of all the things that could go wrong. You're thinking of all these different things. It's an aim. I've got to aim right before I shoot. And you're going to mess up. You're going to do something wrong. You're not going to have the process perfect, but you're never going to know those things until you start. So that's my opinion.
I think there's something else that fits into this whole process of trying to determine where you fit in the market. Mm-hmm. First thing is, a lot of business startups just go, well, I like pizza, I'm going to start a pizza joint. I like coffee, I'm going to start a coffee shop. So we need to take a step back and we need to look around ourselves in our industry, whatever niche we're looking at getting into, and say, okay, what's the problem the customer has? What's the issue the customer has? What's their pain point? And how can I solve that differently than anybody else in the industry? It may come from your expertise. It may come from your education. It may come from your network and so on. So that's one thing. The second side is most businesses look internally in their industry. They're navel gazing.
Mm-hmm. I like that term.
Yeah. If I'm an engineer, I do everything engineers do. I look at what other engineering firms do and so on. So the key is really, and this is where all of the unique strategies come from, is look around at what other people are doing in other industries and say, could I adapt that to my industry? Could I bring this process, this concept, this customer interface into my industry and make a combination of two industries? And you think about McDonald's, I mean, a milkshake salesperson walked into a mom and pop hamburger place, right?
Exactly.
and so they walked into a mom and pop hamburger shop and noticed they were doing assembly line hamburgers.
Yeah.
And that's all of a sudden he looked at the process in manufacturing and he thought, gee, if we have a bigger assembly line or more assembly lines, we can do this faster, bigger, better, so on and so forth. So that had nothing to do with selling milkshakes. It had to do with a process and a system that was adapted from some idea that he saw. And I think that's where most entrepreneurs make mistakes, is they navel gaze. They look at their own industry, they do the same thing as everybody else is doing, and then they go, well, how come we're not making money? How come our strategy's not working? It's because the customer can't differentiate. So, and Kent talked about this a little bit too, is that if you're doing the same thing as everybody else, then you're not going to stand out, you're not going to make a profit. So the key is, and this is an old expression, comes back from the early days of advertising, and that is, if all else is equal, price is the only differentiating factor. So what's our differentiating factor such that the customers see us differently from everybody else, right?
Yep.
I think that's the real key. And that's what he's talking about. And it's not a huge deal. You don't have to spend months and years coming up with this concept. Sometimes it's just the light bulb goes on, you go, there it is. That's the strategy.
David Saxby, I think you just fracking nailed Kent's discussion in that 30-second soundbite just there. I'm going to have to play that on as an audiogram. So our time is up as always. David, I love having you on because you're so thoughtful, so intentional. For those that are in Calgary, Canada, the Texas of Canada, welcome Stampede. If you have your own business up there, please, please, please hit up David. Join Global Leaders Organization up there. And outside of your LinkedIn, David, is there any other way to get a hold of you, sir?
Absolutely. They can email me, dsaxby, my last name, at sparkcommunications.com. They can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. They can also just call me directly, 403-585-9870.
Ooh, you just went on the interwebs with your phone number.
Yep. I know.
You don't mess around, Mr. David Saxby, that's for sure.
You never know where our conversation goes.
That's true. That's true. And Erin.
Yes, I apologize for the half-naked man that came into the office. Our cleaners got here a few minutes early, so it was a bit chaos for a moment there. The joy of live. So anyway, this is all part of the Business Acceleration 2.0 series provided by GLO. You can join us every Thursday, 10 a.m. We'd love to have you join as premium members, though. If you're in Calgary, make sure you connect with David. If you're in Dallas, Syya, or myself, you can head over to With GLO, that's GLO.com, and find out more.
Excellent. And coming up next week, just a heads up and understanding what Global Leaders Organization is all about. Now that we are starting to open up the doors and we're coming back to human interaction, the whole purpose of GLO was for us to develop in-person meetings and, do group education. We have forums that we are in the process of aligning right now. So if you join as a premium member, you actually get free access to a forum in your locale. So obviously in Dallas, Calgary, because, we have our priorities, but elsewhere. So for example, we have upcoming meetings, July 20th in Mexico. Our colleague, Mr. Carlos Albaron, he's got Joel Peterson, the former former chairman of JetBlue, joining them. He's got in Denver, July 21st, Joseph Barasanzi is going to be talking about preparing to raise capital. So the checklist that needs to be done before you even sign up and ask for money. And then on July 22nd, our next Business Acceleration 2.0 speaker is Marjorie Wildcraft. So she is all about from a handful of sand to a movement of millions. So again, she is going to talk about how to grow your network through movement. And as right now, as we all know, the social connection that we have for businesses is not unique to our personalities in itself. There's also mission and purpose that people are looking for and identifying and doing business with one another. So any questions on any of that, go to withglo.com. Guys, I think that was a lot of meaty conversation. David Saxby, thank you for coming back. Any parting thoughts, anybody?
I would just say, talking about events, we're doing a live event for premium members only July 22nd. So as private wine tasting, thanks to Rashmi. So if you're a premium member, make sure to join us. And it's a good time in the next week to join to be part of that.
Exactly. So on that note, everyone, I think until next week. And that wraps it up for another episode of Afterglow.